I'm very happy to get the opportunity to talk about the importance of influencing governments by joining forces and making sure that we don't confuse them, because that seems to be the easy thing to do is confuse them. And if they are confused, that's a good excuse to do nothing. And we want things to move and things to change. So that is why we are so focusing on that. Can I have the next slide, Leo? So how can you lose and confuse them? So the thing is that if you see numbers, we see many different numbers. Sometimes they are self-reported, sometimes they are measured. We are using different levels of hearing loss, the WHO classification of hearing loss, the ASHA classification of hearing loss, the BIAP. Okay, confusing. Then we also use numbers on different populations, because if you look at the global scale, you get different numbers than on Americas or the US or the Europe or EU, because that's not the same, right? So there's many ways that you can look different than numbers. Also, when you see percentages of uptake of hearing aids and cochlear implant and other assistive devices, you also see different numbers. And I'm somewhat concerned because most think that the higher the number, the bigger the influence. And I think that's a mistake. I think you should stick to realistic numbers, because the best way to scare a policymaker is to exaggerate your numbers, because the only thing they see is investment and they see a massive issue with their budget. And the moment you exaggerate, the likelihood they will do something is even lower than if you're realistic. And that is why also you need to be careful. Like if you look at the percentage of people reporting that they have some issues with their hearing, doesn't mean that these are all people that can benefit from hearing aids. The numbers used of people that can get reimbursed from cochlear implants doesn't mean that those people will automatically be all the candidates for cochlear implants. And that's how you get very high numbers, but sometimes unrealistic numbers, and you need to be fair. And that's why it can work much better if you are realistic, down to earth. Change comes in small steps. Change doesn't come overnight with tripling a budget from this year to next year. And you know how the economic situation is in most countries. Be realistic and be careful. So aligning and getting the numbers right is important. And that's why we join forces. And if you click again, Leo, you will see we join forces with EFHO, with EuroCIU, with CIICA, with IHEMA. We talk with the European Commission, we talk with WHO, and we keep using the same story. Let's join forces so we all say the same. And let's use each other's logic to be sure that we are consistent in what we say, but also that we learn from each other how to get things right. Next slide. Yeah, I made some different transitions to make sure that people don't fall asleep by kill to PowerPoint. That's the idea. And what we are right now doing is that we are now looking in what is the impact of hearing loss on employment. What is the impact of hearing care on employment? And what is the importance of empowerment at the workplace? Because when you look at Eurotrack, for instance, and you look at the results, it looks like everybody's so happy with their hearing aids at the workplace, and hearing aids are genius. And if you just get the right hearing aid, everything is fixed. And you get the same stories from cochlear implant experts from time to time. And I'm not blaming CIICA, to be clear, but some of them behave as if you are cured or fixed the moment you get a cochlear implant. Implants are great, but they don't cure or fix you. And I think it's important to be realistic in expectations. And it's also important to inform people better. So what we did in strong cooperation with the Thomas More University College, but mostly with the members of EFHO, is to create a survey that works. So step by step, the survey was first tested by native English speakers in English to check if the survey made sense for hard of hearing people. And we check what is your level of hearing loss, by the way, or if you don't know your level of hearing is, if you say of hearing loss, if you say that, how is your experience, what are you doing? We also added a validated questionnaire, which is the IOAHA, never use abbreviations if you can explain it. So it means the International Outcome Inventory for Hearing Aids. But we also have created exactly the same version for cochlear implants because we treat them as well. I think any kind of amplification works. It's a validated questionnaire that has been validated in multiple languages. So that is why it's so useful to do that. And then we look How is the satisfaction with hearing aids in different situations, with cochlear implants, and how are people doing? Here you see a small slide, but if you click again, Leo, you will see that most people say that their hearing aids or implant helped very much, or a lot, or moderately. But then when you ask, how challenging is or was it to communicate at your work due to your hearing loss? When they are using their implants, when they are using their hearing aids, then you get a different story. Because some say it's slightly challenging, but most say it's moderately, very challenging, or extremely challenging. And we seem to underestimate how difficult it is to manage and to work effectively, to communicate effectively at work. The next one is even more bothering as such, because it's kind of reflecting self-stigma. Could you just go one more back, Leo, if you don't mind? So, yeah, no, just only the slide. So the question was, over the last 2 weeks, yeah, you can click again. Over the last 2 weeks, were other people bothered at your work by the fact that you have a hearing loss? And if you can click to the next. And then you will say that the minority says not bothered at all. Some say bothered slightly, but a lot say bothered moderately and bothered quite a lot. So if you click again, people using hearing aids and people using cochlear implants experience that their colleagues at work are bothered by their hearing loss. Now, if that's true, yes or no, I don't know. But the fact that that's the perception is an important issue, and we should not ignore that. The next slide is even worse. So if you can click to the next slide, because the question is, who informed you about the possible support you could receive as hard of hearing person at the workplace? Select all that apply. And if you click again, you will see that most of them had to research it themselves, followed by I was not informed about any support as well. And completely at the bottom, only 10% was informed by their audiologist. To be honest, that is shocking. And I feel guilty. And I have to excuse myself and all my colleagues that we are so little aware of what it takes to be effective at the workplace and to inform people much better on what kind of support you can get. So if you click again, that is why we think it's important that audiologists need to be better trained, employers need to be better informed, and users need to be better informed as well on what is available. Because it's clear it's not enough just to have a hearing aid or an implant. It is important that you know what kind of support you can get, what can be done at the workplace, and how you can be empowered. And then if you click again, and I've already put the link in the chat, and I'll do it again if you don't mind, because we want all of you to help us to learn what it takes to be more successful at work. Now, we've learned that if you want user input, don't do it all in English. So if you click again, you will see all the languages in which we have created this survey. It's in English, in Dutch, in French, in German, in Spanish, in Portuguese, in Italian, and Polish. And if you want us to translate the validated version, we will be very happy to talk to you. But please help us to share it. Here you see the QR codes. I've put the link already in the chat. I'll do even more, and Sue promised me that CIICA will be very instrumental in helping us sharing it. So thank you so much, Sue, to do that, because we want a lot of data. And we don't want those data because we want another talk to be done. No, we want those data to inform all of you much better, to make sure that audiologists know what to say and what to do, and to also make sure that employers know exactly what's being done. Now, that has been done in strong collaboration with AFO, because this is the user's voice we need. And I think it's essential to do that. And don't worry, you'll have us talking about it many more times. And I hope in the next CIICA meeting, we can show the results of what we're finding, and we can show you all the guidelines we're finding. Next slide, please. And then, of course, we have our typical Getting the Numbers Right report. We made one in 2024, but there's a lot of new Eurotracs being published right now. So we are already in preparation to create a new version for 2026. That's about my last thing I will do, Lydia, before I retire, to get a good book ready at that moment and a good report. Yearly, we normally have our lunch debate from the European Parliament. Here's the one we had in 2025. And if you click again, Leo, you will see that on the 5th of March, we will have another lunch debate, virtual from the European Parliament. We've also shared the link, and hopefully also CIICA will help us to share it. You're all welcome to join that virtual lunch debate, where the topic of hearing and employment is being treated. And we'll talk about their experience. What is their experience of being empowered at school? How it works if you transition from school to work? What is being done? What is the effect? And you will see the first results of the survey. So hopefully we get a lot. The closing date for the survey is now the 28th of February. So please help us to get a lot of data in so we can share as much as we can with you. And the next, and also, looking at numbers. You don't need to get into the details here. We show all the numbers from different countries. The numbers you see there are the 2024 numbers of all the EU countries, but we are kind, so we also include UK, Norway, and Switzerland, because I promised Sue that even after Brexit, UK is still very welcome, and we will keep communicating about you all. We all like you, UK guys, so feel welcome. But we do focus on Europe at some point, because to make it a global report, there's more than 200 countries, would be a little difficult to handle, to be honest. And next slide, please. We've also been looking in the fact that a lot of people say cochlear implants or hearing aids are expensive. And I keep repeating they're not. They are a very good investment. And the return of investment on hearing aids and cochlear implant is much better than any stock investment you can make. And that is why we also joined forces with CIICA on making the spend to save report. Next slide, please. And then you see that on the spend to save, we state that for every US dollar invested, you have a return on investment of $16, and that's on a global scale. If you click again, then you have the world report on hearing, and you see that those numbers differ because it depends on the income in a certain country, the expense, cost of life in a certain country. So for a global scale, it's $16, but if you click again, for Europe, that is 30 euro return on investment for every euro invested. So I think it's important to use the correct numbers per region, and I think they are quite high. So it's, yes, hearing care is not a cost. Hearing care is an investment. The return on investment is so huge that it shouldn't stop you. And that was well seen by the French government, because they have what they call 100% health. And they say they want to spend more in healthcare because the return on investment is so good. It is much cheaper to invest in healthcare than to draw the consequences of untreated issues like untreated hearing loss. So I think it's important to do things right. The answer is joining forces, talking to each other. And sometimes when I hear Sarah talking about advocacy, she's genius and she's the expert, and I always love Sarah talking. And I hope she also gives you courage that all of you can do advocacy. And the strongest advocate are the users, because you know what it takes. I think it's so essential that we join forces when we are advocating and changing policies. You can't imagine how many doors open when they see that we're doing things together. Because if you're on our own, it looks like, that hearing care professional, he just wants to make money. That manufacturer, he just wants to sell more implants or more cochlear implants. But if we join forces and we talk about the importance of investing in care to get return on investment, and they see the user, I think it's essential. And yes, Lydia's right. Lydia is one of the best promoters we ever had. And I keep forgetting that she is using cochlear implants. To be honest, in a noisy bar, she's doing much better than I can because her lip reading is so much better than mine at some point. So she's great. She's a star user. But I think we also need to be aware that although that hard of hearing people are great in doing it, we need to be fair to them. It's not because you can manage very well for an hour that you can expect that if you have a hearing loss and you have to work in a noisy environment and it takes a full day, that energy isn't kind of stopping at some point. I think we need to be fair to each other. And I think that is why support and listen and make sure that we join forces. And I think if you click once, Leo, that should be it. So thank you for your attention. I took a little more time because Sue told me I could, because we had enough time in this system. So I hope that you can join us bringing that survey to all the different users and to your network. And we hope to see you soon for another good collaboration on joining forces to get things done. Thank you so much.